All right, so we left off yesterday. Did anybody work on this? Anybody having I think we were trying to get the users or the thought owner's name on the page, right? So let me do pip. Shell. Oops, Python server. Server's running. Okay, so if I log in, it's not found. So where do I go first? You guys there?
Server.
Server, awesome. Okay, so thoughts user. So it's trying to get to dashboard, right? So if I'm the route I'm trying to get to is /dashboard. It's saying that route, it can't find that route. So let me go into my, where do I look for the routes?
Controllers.
So it should be, that's my thoughts. And do I have, I don't even have it, do I? Oh no, wait, there it is. So thoughts is right there. Should be rendering the template thoughts, thought.get all. So it's, let's see. Oh, it's because I called it dashboard. So once I log in, right? So I logged in and it sent me somewhere, right? So I log in under users, right? So if I go to my login route, it's redirecting me to the dashboard, which I think that's the problem, because in thoughts, it should be taking me to the show all for my thoughts, right? Which is where to go, read right here. Should be going right here, but it's not. So I think the error is coming from the fact that I'm redirecting, once I log in, I'm redirecting to dashboard. So let me change this to thoughts. Let's see if that fixes it. So if I refresh, that doesn't work. So let me try to log in again. There we go. So now when I log in, it's directing me to thoughts. So I got my like functionality working, my unlike functionality working. So now I need to display the thoughts that belong, or I need to display the name of the user who made this thought, right? So let me open up my database just so we can see what we're dealing with. So I think, I don't remember which database I'm using. So how would I find out? Where do I connect to my database?
Your models.
Yeah. So if I go to thought, I can double check, just make sure that's why I set this database here. That way I know where my database connection is or my database name is, and I can know exactly where to go. So I'm using model schema. That's good. So if I go back here, model schema, try to expand this a little bit. And so I have thoughts. And I only have one. That's all my thoughts. So I only have user ID is only one with thoughts. So I have users. If I go here, and I only have one user. Okay. So let's add another user just so we can sort of have some data to work with. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to log out if I don't have log out. So let's go to, I think it's delete, or maybe it's just log out. Let's just log out. Cool. That logs me out. So I'm going to make another user. Okay. And this is complete. Palmer. Okay. So now I'm still being routed to dashboard. So how did I fix this before?
Controllers.
Yeah, so I go to controllers, and the user is where I log in. So if I come up to user, sorry, that's the wrong place, users. Yeah, so I'm redirected to thoughts on the login and but not on the register. So I want to change this to thoughts. Okay, so now if I go back to my browser, go back, try to register Dave again, it's cool. So now David is logged in and David's going to have a thought. I like fireworks. And I'm setting the likes, but I want to change that, right? I don't want to set the likes, but I'm just going to do it for now, just so for, okay, so now I'm getting thoughts false, not found. So based on the URL, what controller should I check?
Thoughts?
Thoughts, right? Does everybody see that? So I want to keep my, and this is something I've seen on a couple of people who are working on their projects. So when you have routes for a user, it should be users save or users, something consistent, right? So user show all, if that's, or when we're dealing with thoughts, all your thoughts should be thoughts something, thoughts edit, thoughts decrement likes, that's probably a bad example, but it should be something like thoughts, like to show a thought, it's thoughts and then the ID of the thought. Okay, so I'm trying to reroute. Once I create a thought, I'm going to look at, so it errored when I tried to create a thought, right? So if I'm going to go down to, I haven't labeled the create ones. Yeah, I did, they're here. Okay, so this route shows my form to add a thought, right? When the data comes in, this is what renders, right? So it says thoughts / thought. What does this do?
Grabs it from the database.
So this one, the save, thought.save grabs it from the database. And then I save it to a variable. Okay, so when I ran thought, or when I created my thought, right, it came to this route, and then what I got back was, where it tried to send me was thoughts false. So what does that tell me?
Yeah, you don't have that route. The route's not there.
Well, yeah, so it's when I redirected, I'm sending it to thoughts / and then I'm doing the string interpolation and I'm giving it thought. So this returned false. So when I said thought.save, it broke, right? Because what's basically happening is this is returning false and thought is coming back as false. So it tried to send me to thoughts false. So something's going on. There's an issue with my database. So if I come in here, I'm going to look for an error. And so this is, where is it? So it says insert into, that worked. It says detected change, printing that, but I get a 404 there. So something, let's see. Can't see where it's breaking. So I'm going to, where should I check next? Because what I did was, and let me just make sure that I'm not. So I'm retracing my steps. I try to insert a new user. Let's make it David Maxwell and change the email to.
Well, in the controller, you have edit .html, and you don't have an HTML called that
Where?
in your dots controller.
For edit, but I'm not editing, I'm creating. So I'm trying to create a thought, and should be redirecting to thought, which is this one right here. It should be thoughts, and then this should take me to show thought. You're right. I haven't done anything to edit a thought yet. But I'm not trying to call that route. I'm trying to get to this route. But when I do, it's routing me to thoughts false, which this isn't going to work, right? That's not going to take me anywhere. So I have a thoughts show thoughts. So this should be rendering when I submit the thought for Dave, right? Does that make sense, Chuck?
Yeah, we weren't even calling the other one, so yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to check my database and see if I have, so Dave isn't hitting my database. Let me just double check. Run this. Oh no, he's there. Okay, so it added to my database. So what's happening? I come back here. I go back to my browser. I try to submit Dave. I'm not going to try to submit him again. Let's see, what was his email? Let's try to log him in. Pyro Dave. Okay. So I'm going to try to log Pyro Dave in. Okay, so I'm able to log him in. Maybe let me just refresh and see if this works. So it's I like fireworks for submit. Okay, so it's not working. It's not hitting the database. I'm getting false back. So when I go to thoughts and I try to create a thought, this is returning false. So if I look in here, I don't see the error. So the select works. I'm not seeing any error. It's just returning false. So let's see. I'm calling thoughts.save. So let me go there. So thought.save. This is returning false. So let me just see what's happening when I try to add. So I'm going to, actually, I'm going to set this to a variable. I'm just going to call it result. Okay, and then I'm going to print result and return result. Okay, so I could just return this call to this function, but what I want to see what it's getting, what it's returning. So let's try that. Go back, refresh. So now I should see what I'm returning. So that's my return. So what am I doing wrong? Insert thought.
Would it have anything to do with you having more than one Dave saved in the database?
I don't think so. Let's see if the thoughts are hitting the database. Let's go check my thoughts. Yeah, so my thoughts aren't getting saved. So I have users. I have 2 Daves, which isn't that big of a deal. It is a big deal. It's not the best situation, but it should either save them to either 2 or 3. So when I try to save to the database, it's not getting there. So let's go back to my thought controller. So when I'm printing request.form, but I'm not, am I even seeing that? Let me me try it again.
It's showing two thoughts in your terminal.
It is?
Yeah.
All right, so I have too many print statements, so that's part of the problem. Let me go back to, so I'm printing a request.form, I'm printing thought. Let me take that out. So I want to see what's coming in on my form. So I'm going to move this off the screen so you guys don't have to watch me do this. Okay, so going back here, so I'm going to submit I hope this works. So if I submit that, okay, so that's coming in. There we go. Something went wrong, user ID. So what did user IDs coming in as 2?
On the last one, I think it came in as 3.
Really?
Like if you
So
just scroll up in the terminal, I think.
I see a 5 up there. Oh,
So
user ID 1.
this,
No.
yeah, I don't see another form though.
On the last time that you submitted it, on the bottom. Or,
Right here, I see it. I didn't see this before though.
yeah, but one above it.
One above it?
Yeah, so right there, it's showing 2 thoughts. So it has one with user ID 1 and then one with 5. Because you didn't do ASDF, right?
Right. I hope this works. So this is coming from, this print is coming from somewhere else. So if I'm going to go back to thought, and so I think that's this one. Actually, let me take these, I'm going to comment it out. Okay, so I think the issue is something went wrong, user ID. User ID is 2. So if I go back to my database, user ID is 2, so that's fine. Let me check my thoughts. User ID 1. Okay, so likes is 4. So when I have something wrong, user ID. Okay, so let me go to thoughts. And I'm going to check my form. Where's my form? Here it is. So user ID. Oh. I think I know the problem.
Is it supposed to be thought.user ID?
I think so. The issue I think is here. Let me just double check. Where's my form? Where'd my form go? Lost it. Let me just run it again. Go back. Yeah. So what's the data type of user ID?
String.
Yeah. So I'm trying to pass in a string to my thought. So let's see. So I think I skipped ahead. Yeah, that's what I did. Okay, so what I'm going to have to do is basically create. So once I get this form in, well, let me ask you, how do I fix this? What do I do? So this, I can't just pass in request.form, right? When I create a thought. because here I'm creating a thought, right? And I'm just saying, I'm creating the content. Oh, so I'm already doing it. So I need to, what I do here is I take the content from the form, I change my likes to 0. So I forgot to do that for user ID, right? So here I just say user ID. And what is the user ID?
Is that part of the form? Like request dot
Uh-huh.
form?
Yeah, so I'm saying, I'm going to say request.form.
And it's in the form because it's a hidden input, right?
Yeah, yes. Let's find
Or
out.
was
Let me
the
double check.
like just the hidden input?
Okay, so it's coming in, user ID is hidden, it's a hidden input, and I'm passing in the session of the user that's logged in. So what I forgot to do is convert it, right? So I could take request.form and I say user ID. What do I need to do to this though? Because this comes in as a string, right? So request.form user ID is a string.
You have to make it an integer.
Yeah, so how do I do that?
Int.
Yeah, so I just convert it or coerce it, however you want to say it. Okay, so now I'm passing in the content, the likes, I'm defaulting to 0. And I don't remember doing that, but I guess I did it. And then once I passed, when I passed the data to thought.save, it's sort of been altered as it needed to be altered, right? So the content I'm taking out, likes is being set to 0 regardless of what I put in as the form, right? I'm passing in likes, but I'm converting it to 0. And then I'm passing the user ID converted. Okay, so let's try this now. I think we should be back in business. So now I come back here. I'm going to go back, refresh, and now Dave is going to say, I like fireworks, so we can identify him. This doesn't matter because I'm resetting the likes to 0. Now I'm going to hit submit, cool. So likes is 0, and it redirects to the show page for Dave. Okay, does that make sense? Or did I lose anybody?
No, that makes sense.
Okay. All right, so now we're showing, so going back to our wireframe. Did I have it in here? Shoot, I don't think I do. Or do I? No. Let me move it in here. It's in here. Okay, I'm going to put it in lib, so we have it available. So that I think is, yeah. Okay, so the red belt is here. So we've got basically up to this point, right? Because we're showing a user's thought. So when I go back here, I'm getting to thoughts. So thought.7 has a display. I didn't mean to do that. But what I want to do is, as soon as I create a thought, right? So when I create a thought and click add thought, where should I go? It doesn't really say, does it? I think a thought just pops up here, right? I think when I say, whoever has a thought, it just should pop up right here. Everybody agree?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do that. Let's get that to work. So right now, let me close this. Okay, so if I go back to thoughts, so I'm getting a thought, I'm redirecting to thoughts. I just want to just basically redirect to thoughts without the end there. And so now if I go back, let's have Dave say something, have another thought. Here's another great thought. Submit. There we go. So now it just pops up right there. And you see, make sure the likes work. They're a little slow, but they work. Unlike, okay, cool. Any questions so far? So the next thing I'm going to do to try to reduce some of the clutter, I'm going to go into the place where I make a new thought, which is in thoughts, and I'm going to take out that where I can add a like, because I already have my likes defaulting to 0, so I want to just say change this up so it looks better and it's makes more sense. So thoughts, THOUGHTS. So I'm going to say new thought. So now we have, so new thought. So the only thing that's going to be submitted is a new thought. Let me take out that first name. Placeholder. There it is. Let's take that out. Okay, cool. So the next thing we need to do, is what I was trying to do first before we got sidetracked, I want to be able to pass the user's name here. And when I click this, I should be able to go to the user's show page. Okay, so right now it doesn't go anywhere. Actually, it does. It goes to where I'm trying to go, but it's not working. So let's do first things first. I want to get the user's name here, right? So how do I do that? So when I first query my database, right, where do I write the code that queries my database?
Would you put it in there as Jinja?
Well, but I got to get it. So right now I'm getting, let me just, so when I get all, right, when I get all the thoughts, all I'm getting is the thoughts, right? So I want to, when I populate my list, so when this page, not this page, yeah, this page, when this runs, I want to be able to have the user's thought here. So this is my thoughts. So if I go to thoughts, my route, the place where this is rendering is right here. So I'm reading all my thoughts. So I'm calling get all. So when I call the get all method, I want to display the user's thoughts as well as the thought. Okay, so right now when I'm calling this get all, it's right here, all I'm doing is saying select all from thoughts, but I want to add on the username, right? So I want to write a query that's not only going to get the thought, but also the first name of the user that made the thought. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So like
Okay.
select ID from thought.
Yeah. So what I can do, instead of saying like star, I can say thoughts, like name the table, and I could say dot star. Okay, because if I want to add another parameter that I want to grab, I need to say like what the table, I need to distinguish between the tables. So I want to get everything from thoughts, and that's what this means. Okay, so thoughts dot star. And I also want to get users dot first name. Okay. Now, users dot first name is obviously a separate table, right? So I'm getting everything from the thoughts table, and I want to get the first name column from the users table that corresponds to this thought. Okay, questions so far? I want to make sure I didn't lose anybody with this.
No, that makes sense.
Okay, so I'm saying from thoughts, how do I get data from two different tables? What statement do I use? What SQL statement?
Would you join them?
Join, yeah. I'm going to use left join just because I want to be able to get thoughts. Well, I guess we wouldn't have a thought without a user, but I'm just going to do left join just to be on the safe side. So I'm going to left join users. And how are users connected to thoughts?
User ID.
Yeah. So users.id equals what?
Thought ID.
Yeah. Well, so thoughts, how do we track which user has which thought? If I go back to my database.
User ID.
Yeah. So this user ID, let me refresh this. I should have more thoughts in here. There we go. So Tyler's thoughts are all these, Dave's thoughts are these two, right? So to be able to match them, I need to say, give me the thought, or I'm sorry, give me the user that corresponds to this user ID. So this thought belongs to Tyler, this thought belongs to Dave. So I want to get, when I get all of them, I want to get the first name of the user that made the thought. So back in my query statement, I say join users on where the user ID equals thoughts dot user ID. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to print I got a print statement here printing the results because I want to just make sure that we understand what we're getting. So if I go back to my browser, I'm going to move this off to the side and then go back to thought. And then I'm just going to refresh the page. Okay, so this is what I get back when I run my query now. So I get, I don't say the beginning of the list, but it is a list that gives me the user ID, the first name comes back. So now I have this first name property available on my thought. Okay. So now if I go back to my thoughts where I'm rendering this thoughts user for now. So I look for that in my table and there's user and there's thoughts user. So I want to basically change this to the thoughts. What did I call it? It should be thought.first name. Yeah. So thought. Because remember, I'm iterating through the list of thoughts that comes back. So thought for thought and thoughts, I want to take the thought ID and then the thought dot first name. Okay. So does everybody understand where this comes from?
Yeah, we just did it. We just put it in there.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay, so let me save this. And so now when I refresh the page, they're not there. What did I do wrong? So thought.first name. We get the ID. Give me 1 second. I just go close the door. Sorry about that. All right, so it's not showing up. What did I do? Should have a first name property. Oh, wait. I think I know what I did. Okay, what did I do wrong? What did I forget? So when I get all, I create a thought, right? So let me print. I'm gonna stop printing right here. So it's commented out. All right, so now when I create or when I refresh the page, I get a bunch of thoughts, right? So when I create, then I create my thought right here. And the thought is each dictionary in the list of thoughts that comes back from the database. But when I create a thought, what am I forgetting to add to the thought?
The user.
User?
Yeah. So when I create my thought up here, I have self.id, I have self.content, self.likes, but I don't have a place in my thought class for the user name, right? So I'm sending it back from the database, but I'm not adding it as an attribute on my thought object. So how do I fix that?
I mean, do you need to create another one of those? But you'd have to update the database too, right?
Well, no, so it's coming back from my database. So, but this is when I make my user, I'm sorry, my thought object. So I'm getting it back from the database. Let me uncomment this again. And let me refresh. Oops. I'm gonna kill those dogs. Okay, so now if I refresh it, so what I'm getting back from my database is this, right? Which is a list of, highlight too much, yeah. So I'm getting a list of dictionaries. My dictionary that comes back is highlighted too much, hold on, is right here. So I'm getting, this dictionary has a user ID, it has a first name, but I'm not doing anything with it. Okay, so I need to take that from that dictionary and add it to my user, I'm sorry, to my thought instance that I'm creating. Okay, does that make sense? I can say it again if you want me to. Okay. All right, so instead of user ID, I'm going to say user name, because that's what I called it. So user name. Okay. And now let's see if it works. And unkey error username.
Was it just the first name that we got?
That's what, yeah, right? Is that what I did? I did first name. Thank you. So now it's not going back. Why won't it go back? There we go. There, now that it's working. So everybody with me? Do you want me to recap how I did this? I will, if you want me to.
Yeah, you might as well.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
All right, because I kind of screwed it up, right? So what I did was I'm getting back from my database this list of dictionaries. Okay, so the dictionary, do I have pretty print? No. So the dictionary has an ID, it has a content, which is the content of the thought, the number of likes, created at, updated at, and now since I did this join, right? Since I, where is it? Since I joined the thought, or I'm sorry, the user first name with the thought that comes back, I just basically tack this on, right? So once that's in there, it's coming back from my database, but we're not using, and we never use raw data from the database on our front ends, right? So we always convert what comes back into an instance of the thought class. So the reason it wasn't working before is back here in thoughts, I was saying thought.firstname, but again, my thought is an individual instance of a thought. It's an instance of the thought class. So when I create my thought, I need to it needs to have the attribute first name in order for me to be able to call it in the HTML. So this property, when I was first trying it, didn't exist on my thought. So I needed to add this so that when I call it in the HTML, this first name attribute exists on my thought object. Okay.
Why does it need first name? Why couldn't it just base it off the ID?
Because if I take so I could just use the ID, but then I would need to make another database query and query the database to get the user with that ID.
Okay, so you just
Okay.
combined and
Yeah, so I said this initially and I kind of just glossed over it, but we want to minimize the number of times we hit our database.
Mhm.
So if I can do if I could do something in one database call instead I can do with two, right? So if I can minimize and reduce the number of database calls I make, then it's more efficient. Okay. All right, so nope, now let's see where we're at. So we've got, when we log in, we say we welcome the user. Let me go back to my wireframe. Where did I put my wireframe? In here. And that's the red belt. Okay, so we've got the login in reg. We've got this, looks pretty much the way it's supposed to look. We have a like and a dislike and then the name of the user. So now when we click the user's name, where should we go? What route do I need to set up for clicking on the user?
It wouldn't be the dashboard.
No, so it's I'm just looking at this right here. Get my drawing tool. So I'm looking at this functionality right here. So when I click in my, way too much stuff open. So when I click Tyler, right here on my website, this should go to that user page for that user.
Yeah, show
When I
user.
click Tyler, it should go to localhost 5000 /users / whatever Tyler's ID is. Okay, are we with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so right now, if I go back to my browser, if I hover over Tyler, where is it go? Oh, it's working. I don't even remember setting that up. Okay, so it's if I hover over Tyler, it's taking me to users / whatever the user is. Okay, so let me click it and see what I get, and I get an error, of course. So errors are good, right? They tell us what to do. So let me get my drawings out of there. So what's my error? What's going wrong? So the last thing we see in, and this is called the stack trace. I don't know if I mentioned that, but the stack trace is basically a report of everything that happened up to the point where our application crashed. So this last line here is where it crashed. So it crashed on line 41 of user.py. So let's start our search there. So let's go to user.py line 41. And if I can, way too much open here. There we go. So if I go into my Flask app, I go into my model, I go into user, line 41. So it's failing right here. So going back to our stack trace, the place it hit before that was in my user's controller when I called this method. So get user with models. Okay. So if I go back here, if I go to my controller, my users line number was 48. So it's failing right here. Some of this stuff. So it's failing when I call get user with models. So what is this? What should this method be doing?
Should we get user with bots?
Yeah, it should be getting the user with all of its thoughts. So first thing that's wrong is I'm calling it user with models. It should be user with thoughts. Right. So I think I think the names are just messed up. I just forgot to come in here and change. And yeah, so it's got params. So every time this class method runs, I want to be able to pass it the data, right? So back in 48. So I have the ID, right? Is that what this is expecting? I think it is. Yeah, because all I'm passing is the ID. So I think that's okay. What's my problem here? What's the problem with my query statement?
The names.
Yeah, I'm trying to get information from a table called models, which doesn't exist. So I'm going to come through and I'm going to, just so this doesn't happen anywhere else, I'm going to come through and everywhere where it says model, I'm going to change it to thought. So I'm just going to duplicate. Just make sure I get them all. I hope I don't get too many. I think I might have got to, no, I think that's good. Yeah. So I want to change everywhere where it says model, I want to change it to the model that I'm using, right? So it's thought. Okay. So now just to double check, I'm importing. So the one thing that went wrong, I'm importing my thought from flaskapp.models.thought. So that got changed by mistake. And my database name got changed. So that's not good. I'm going to change this back to models. And I think that's it. Just double check. Okay, so when I select everything from users, I left join thoughts on thoughts.userid equals user.id, where the user ID equals the ID that I pass in. So I want to get all of the thoughts that belong to this user. So is this going to work?
No, you still got to change a few things.
Yeah. So ID equals result. Thoughts.id might be okay, but the best way to check is to try this and see if I can get this to run so I can see what's coming back from my results. So I'm going to see if I can get it to hit the database now.
You have to change the controller one to it was models.
Let's see. Thank you. And it's in here. There we go. In the controller. Line 48. Cool. Thank you. So get user with thoughts. Cool. THOUGHTS. There we go. Okay. So now let's give it a shot. Go back to my browser. And I want to click on Tyler, and I think my server crashed. So let's go back, restart my server. Server's running. Come back, try it again, click on Tyler, and we get param1. Cool, so that's a good sign. So if we go back and check out what we get from the database. Okay, so this is what's coming back from our database. We're getting content. I hope this works. So the content of the thought. We're getting, basically, we have everything in here that we need to make a thought and a user, right? So we have the user's first name, last name. So we're able to make a thought. So we're going to basically be pulling all of this off and passing it into our thought data that we're creating here. So let me just make sure we have, it's going to be right. We have thoughts.id. So that's right. The params are going to be what? What do my thoughts have?
Content.
Yeah, so content. So notice that I'm selecting and doing it 2 at a time. Please do this. Because if you misspell one, like if you leave out the T in this one, right, but put the T in the other one, it's gonna break. So try to use the tools if you can to make the changes. All right, so we have content, we have user ID, and I think that's all I need to change, right? Unless I missed anything. So we have the created at goes with the user. We have ID, last name, likes. Wait, do thoughts have likes? They do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the thoughts have likes. So I'm going to change content to likes. And I think we're good to go. Because user ID is just user ID. Okay. Did anybody see anything else that I missed? Cool. I think we're good. So server's still running. Let me come back to my browser. Refresh. Okay, so now we're getting, let me just try to refresh it, see if. Okay, no, we're still getting the error first name. Key error first name. So we say data first name. That's in thought.py. And user thoughts.append thought. Let's see what I did. Okay, so I create my user, but it doesn't know what first name is. Key error first name.
Do you need to set that in the object, the thought data object?
Does a, oh, that's right. Good call. Where did I, so yeah, so when I make a thought, it now has a first name. Does everybody see that? I know one person sees it. I want to make sure everybody sees it. So now when I'm creating a thought, I need to pass it the first name that we created on this thought. So I'm going to copy this. And down here where I make my thought, right, I have to add in the first name attribute that now exists on the thought. So I have to add that. And it's not self dot, it's first name. And then it's colon. And it's not data, it's result. And it needs a comma. Good catch. Okay, so I don't want to just gloss over this. Everybody understand what happened here?
Yeah, it was looking for that and it wasn't in there.
Exactly. Yeah, I was looking for, it was trying to create a thought. The thought requires this attribute, right? So it has to have a first name. And I forgot that I had added it. So I needed to go in, and when I make a thought for each user, when I make a thought object for each user, it needs to have the first name attribute. Cool. Let's see. Okay, let's try it now. Who caught that, by the way?
Me.
Nice. Good job. Okay, so going back, finally, but my thoughts aren't showing up. And I clicked on it and it says David. So that's a problem. So I click on Tyler, it says David. Actually, that's fine because David's the one who's logged in, but I need to be able to list Tyler's thoughts. So where do I do that? So I'm going to show user. And I should be getting the thought here. So this is going to error out. So let me just print out what we're getting just to make sure the thoughts are getting there. So I'm going to say thoughts. Or am I no. No, I'm passing user. Right? Let's double check. So I'm going back to my user controller. The route that calls show user is, oh, do I even have the route? I do, I have to. Yeah, here. So I'm passing it user equals user. So I should be getting a single user on this route. So if I go back here, refresh, there's my user. So I can use the user's attributes to populate this data, right? So what do I pull from that this user has to populate this data, this table? So I'm have my user in show user. So I've got this is the heading. I want this to be content likes, right? And I'm not sure what else is supposed to be here. So we'll fill this in. when we look at after we look at the wireframe, but I want to get something rendering. So what do I iterate over? Right now I'm iterating over for model in user.models. What do I need to change this to? Thought, exactly. So everywhere where it says model, I'm going to go through and change it to thought. Yeah. Okay, so this, I'm saying that my user has a thoughts attribute, and let me just double check and make sure he does. Yes, he does. So I'm iterating over that list, and for each one, I'm saying thought.id, and param1 isn't going to work, so I need to change that to content. And what else? What else does a thought have?
Likes,
Likes.
and then you had links.
Do I
And
need
that's for,
links?
like, delete, right? That was so you could edit or delete it or whatever.
Yes, yes. Let me just test this first, and then we'll go and we'll fix that. So there are the thoughts. Cool. So I have show. Let's go back to our wireframe. Make sure we're meeting all the requirements. Red belt. So okay. So actually, all we need to do is to show the thought. Because the delete links go up here, right? So all we need to do is click on, actually, we don't need the link down here. All we need is the thought and the content. Okay, I'll take that out. So that's it. I think we're done. Okay, so just to, I'm going to take that out because it's, I don't mind if you leave it in. It's not going to bother me, but the you want it to be somewhat presentable, right? Okay, so we'll take those out too. Take those extra. Okay, refresh. So this gives me all of Tyler's thoughts. If I wanted to say, and actually the wireframe says, we go back to the wireframe, it's supposed to say, okay, so it's just supposed to say Tyler's thoughts, right? So David can be signed in, or another user can be signed in, and they can look at all of Tyler's thoughts. So how would I get this to show up? How would I get, instead of Rita's thoughts, I want, when I come here, I want it to say Tyler's thoughts above where, or below where it says log out.
Create a method, class method.
Well, so we already have, if we look at our user, right? So what we're passing to this page is a user. So if I go back here to show user, I have my user. So it's saying welcome use session username. That's the user that's logged in. But right here, I can access that same user. So here I just took the array of thoughts, but I can grab the user's first name, right? So I can make I guess an H2. And how would I get to the user's thoughts? So I wanted to say Tyler's thoughts.
User ID, thoughts.
Yeah, so I would just say use the Jinja templating, right? And user, and what property do I want off a user?
First name.
First name, yeah. And then I can add the little apostrophe I want if I want to make it look impressive. Then I go back to here and refresh, and I get Tyler's thoughts.
It's magic.
I know, right? All right, so let's double check, make sure we got everything on the wireframe. And where am I? Here. So the wireframe, so we have login registration working. This shows the link to the user's thought. It should show all the users, right? We should have a delete link, a like, unlike. So let me just double check, make sure everything's working before I bother my busy teacher to grade it. I'm just kidding. So if I go back here, I'm going to log in as Tyler this time, make sure. Okay, so it says welcome Tyler, shows all Tyler's thoughts. I can see my thoughts. I can go back, I can see Dave's thoughts. And I can log out and it takes me back here. let's just double check the wireframe. I don't think I missed anything. I think I got everything. Does anybody see anything that I missed? The only thing I don't have is the dashboard link. I can just put that in there. Let's do that. I want to be thorough. So if I go back to show user, how do I link back? So I have log out right here. How would I add a link back home?
Another A tag or no?
Yeah. So another A tag, I could say home or dashboard, or I'm gonna say dashboard because I think that's what it says on the wireframe. And I'm just gonna go home. Right? And let's just make sure that it works. Weird that that's there. Okay. So if I log in again, log in as Dave this time. So I see Dave's thoughts. I can log out. I can go home. But if I think the one I added is here, yeah, it's kind of looks horrible, but that takes me back home. But that's not where I want to go, is it? Where does the dashboard go?
To the user.
Yeah, I should go here, right? So yeah. So where do I need to link that dashboard link to?
Thoughts.
Thoughts, right? So if I come back here, say thoughts. And I don't know how to make it less ugly. I think I can, I don't want to mess with the, you guys can play with the bootstrap if you want. So log in. Dave, dashboard takes me back. I don't remember if we hooked up the delete functionality or not. We did. Okay, but what's the problem? And I'm going to leave this for you as a solution because this is a black belt. I feel like I'm going too far if I demonstrate this. But you want these deletes to only appear for the thought that the logged in user made, right? So I shouldn't be able to delete David's thoughts. Okay. But I'm not going to demo that. I'll leave that to you guys. Questions?
You're gonna go ahead and push this, right?
I will. Okay, cool. Let me stop sharing.